Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Wes Show. Today, I got here Mr. Number One, George Sound. How you doing today, sir?
Buddy. Thank you so much. Glad to be here, buddy. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
What a deal. Glad to have you on the show. Hope you're ready for a great interview,
Yes.
great show.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
What a deal. Mr. Number One.
Yep,
Tell me.
very much. I stole that from Paul Jones. You know, a lot of the viewers may remember Paul Jones back in the day. Yeah, it was so funny. He called himself Number One Paul Jones, and he was always my favorite wrestler. And, throughout the years, I got to become pretty good friends with him, and I always asked him, could I be, number one? And he'd say no. So I had to come up with Mr. Number One.
There you go.
Yeah, he said, I'm still number one. I said, okay.
There you go. How long have you been in the business?
This Christmas will be right at 40 years.
Oh, what a deal.
Sure was. Sure, a lot different. I was telling some guys earlier, when I came along, of course, it was very prestigious and very secret. You didn't talk about it. I remember as a kid asking one of the Crockett's one time where the wrestlers got their boots from.
Yeah.
I remember he cussed me. I mean, you didn't even ask. You didn't even ask something like that. And of course, now it's just the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yeah, a lot of kayfabe.
Yeah, a lot of that's broken. But I still miss those days where if you were very lucky to get in, which I was, you just really kept your mouth shut and you just did what they told you to do.
Yeah.
I got very, very lucky. I found an old wrestling school, and of course back then it wasn't talked about. You didn't have a lot of veterans wanting to train anybody because the way they looked at it is you were going to take their job.
Yeah, okay.
So they weren't going to let you in.
Yeah.
And so I just happened to open up a newspaper, like a movie of the week, and
there you go.
they just said like 3 lines. You want to be a wrestler? I said, oh gosh, this is pretty easy. But I'll never forget. I walked in that little old building, and it was just like something out of an old Scooby-Doo movie. The windows were broke out of it, and doors hanging on the hinges, and I went in, and they had an old ring set up, like an old Rocky movie, and there was a big old Samoan guy, and there was an old lady in it, a woman wrestler, and this old guy named Rusty Robertson.
Okay.
And the door creaked open, and they stopped and looked at me, and he said, what do you want? I said, well, I want to be a wrestler. And stupid me, they said, well, come on. I said, God, all right. All I heard is how hard this was, And so, man, I got in that ring, and they beat the tar out of me. I mean, for like 2 hours. And I knew I was fixing to die. I mean, their objective was to hurt me, and so I would leave and tell other people, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But dumb me, I mean, they broke my nose, and knocked out one of my teeth, and ripped my clothes off, and even the woman wrestler, which we know as women wrestlers, not like the divas or anything like that now, but this woman was as tough as the guys, and she kicked me, beat me up, and they left me over in the corner laughing. I'll never forget it. And I crawled out of that ring, I mean, literally on my knees, and I said, I hate wrestling. I'll never go back. I'm going to change my dreams. And for some dumb reason, the next day I went back.
There you go.
And they thought either he's stupid as he looks or he really wants this. And they actually, about 3 or 4 days later, they needed a guy for a show. And I didn't have gear, I didn't have boots, I didn't have nothing. Yeah. And they threw me right in the ring. And they beat me up again. But I've been doing it ever since.
There you go. Fell in love with it.
Yeah, I sure did.
What a deal.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, from that time, could you tell me some of your favorite matches you've had over that time?
Well, what was so funny is I always wanted to be on TV. I mean, I don't care who you are. Even now, guys, it's like you don't really make it till you get on TV. And of course, back then, the TBS, which was in Atlanta, Georgia, Techwood Drive and Ted Turner and all that, it was just starting to really, we didn't have cable or the internet or anything like that. So Techwood Drive, TBS Studios was really starting to branch out. Ted Turner had the Braves and the Hawks and all that. And I was living in Charlotte, and I didn't know how in the world to get on TV. I mean, nobody knew. You didn't have, I didn't have somebody in the business that could help me. Yeah. I remember calling Georgia Championship Wrestling one time, and Buzz Sawyer answered, and he didn't even let me get a word out. He hung right up on me.
Oh, look at it.
He threatened to kill me and everything. I ain't even said hey yet. So I said, well, maybe that ain't the way you do it. But I met a guy who I still think to this day, Mike Jackson. He lives in Alabama, and he still wrestles. I got hooked up with him, and he said, and that's when I learned about wrestling, like everything else. It's really who you know. Yeah. I mean, it didn't matter how many phone calls I made. It didn't matter how many pictures, because that's the way we done it back then. Where you would send 8x10s. You didn't have a phone. There was no phones. There was no internet. So you just sent 8x10s to every promotion in the world. and just hope that they answered somebody.
And that was back during the territory days.
It sure was, and there was a lot, and I've sent pictures, 8x10s, everywhere I could, and that's why I get kind of tickled. The wrestlers nowadays think that like a promoter owes them something. You know, they'll think, well, I called them and they didn't pick up, and I'm thinking, the promoter won't owe you nothing.
Yeah.
They really don't. They didn't back then, they don't now. It's just, you get very lucky. And so, but Mike Jackson, he sent me to Atlanta, and the very first time I was ever on television was with Jerry Lawler, the King.
Oh, nice, yes.
And so it's kind of neat. I actually, in my book, I've got a picture. Why that day, it's like maybe 1981.
Yeah.
Why I wanted to get a picture with Lawler, I don't know. I remember seeing him in the magazines, and so he was the nicest guy. So we took a picture, and I'm talking 20, 30 years went by. And I saw him at a show, and I told him about that. And I just thanked him for being nice to me. He could have been a jerk, there's a lot of jerks, but he said, I'll tell you what, he said, why don't we redo that picture? And I thought, man, that's not the coolest thing in the world. So he was so particular about it. We were on opposite sides from the picture I showed him. He said, no, you get on this side. I thought, well, he's taking this way too serious. But so we took that picture, and I was able to put both of them in my book, and it's pretty exciting to see that time span. And you know, I look older. He looks the same. He looks the exact same. So it's pretty cool, those moments like that. And then, and I just, for about a year and a half, I just went to TV in Atlanta every day. I mean, every Saturday. And of course, then Dusty Rhodes and Jim Crockett bought that out. And then they just realized I lived in Charlotte. So one thing just led to another, and then I started wrestling for Jim Crockett Promotions.
Oh, there you go.
It was kind of neat because then when they were the territory days, I was working for everybody. I mean, I learned to keep my mouth shut and just yes sir. And there's been many times, like in a week, I'd work for Bill Watts, you know, one day, and then I'd be down in Florida like 2 days later for Eddie Graham, and then we went to WWF. So there's many of my matches all from just different territories, which is pretty neat back then.
Oh yeah, just being able to work the whole.
Exactly.
You got a new crowd to expose
you sure did. My kids used to get so aggravated because they would just want to watch a TV show without their dad on it. I mean, it'd be funny because they would flick the channels, and I'd be against, you know, like a Monday night, and then there'd be another one, and they'd say, fine, enough, Dad. I mean, really, just fine. It was pretty neat to even today to be remembered by some of those matches, of course, with YouTube and all that. So, and then, of course, finally, I got my first match with Ric Flair. That really elevated me because it was so different than it is now. And I know the viewers will understand this. Now, pro wrestling's all about me.
That's true.
And I hate it. It's about what can you do to make me look good. And of course, back in the day, and what I pride myself and my students is, it's all about making that other guy look good. And if I make him look good and he makes me look good, we all make money.
Exactly.
See, and it's just a lost art. But I mean, also, Ric Flair's like the best ever to me. I mean, he's just like, there's Ric Flair, then all of us.
Everybody else.
Exactly. And you know, at that time, he was wrestling 365 days a year, defending that world belt. And so he asked for me. That's what just so amazing. He asked for George. And it was kind of neat because him and Dusty Rhodes always kind of butted heads. Because we taped TBS at like 9 a.m. in the morning. A lot of people didn't know that. His studios were freezing, you know, because they had to keep it cold for the cameras. Because if they overheated, they'd shut down. And Flair hated to get undressed because he had these expensive suits and he had to go catch a plane. So he really hated to wrestle. He just wanted to do an interview. If you go back and look, most of his was just interviews. But that day, Dusty, for some reason, wanted him to wrestle. And Flair didn't want to. And Dusty said, you're going to wrestle. Dusty was the man, and Flair said, okay, if I'm going to wrestle, give me George South.
There you go.
And man, our stomach dropped. I said, oh, you got to be kidding me. Brother, we went out there, and it was like 9 a.m., I mean, in the morning, and freezing, and he was ready to go. I mean, he was just complete shape, and I'm nervous already. You know, there are 100,000 people watching, and he just said, hold on. I said, oh, my God.
All right, here we go.
Well, what's funny is we broke into a commercial, and I thought, well, phew, finally, he'll just stop and let me breathe. But he went harder when we was in a commercial.
Oh, nice.
And man, it was just, what's amazing about our business is, even now, that was like 30-something years ago, and wrestling fans will still come up and say, you know what, I just watched your match with Ric Flair. And the most amazing thing is, for a moment, they thought I was going to win. See, that's the special thing. I tell them I thought I was going to win too. But those things, and of course, you know, for Flair to still remember it, I mean, his daughter Charlotte, you know, is in WWE, she just wrote her life story. And it's kind of neat because about 3 pages in there, Flair tells that whole story that I just shared with you.
Oh, what a deal.
And so it's pretty neat to, you know, for his life and my life, but he still connects, you know, us together. So that's pretty, little things like that. You know, you can't put a price tag on that.
There you go. Well, talk about books. You also don't.
Yes, I sure do. We're so excited. Years ago, I've always had great stories, happen and funny things, and I'd make notes on the back of a box or a napkin or something, and I thought, man. And then one day, I came in off the road, and I got twin girls who they're 22 years old, identical, and at that time they were like 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I came in one night, and they were jumping on the bed, just sugared up. And
yeah.
I never forget, I yelled at them. I said, "Girls, you need to go to bed because Daddy's got to go to work."
Yeah.
And Abigail, my little smart aleck one, I'll never forget it. She said, "Dad, you don't work, you wrestle."
Oh, look out.
And I thought, man, if I ever write a book, that's what I'm going to call it.
There you
and
go.
she still wants royalties for it. But
there you go.
It was so amazing that I had all these stories, and I met a gentleman, Mark James, who did Bill Dundee's and Dutch Mantel's book.
Okay, yeah.
And he said, "You ought to do a book." And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, I can't sit still that long. And he said, "No, just give it to me." And I'm so happy when he got done with it. I mean, when someone says, "Trust me," with your whole life.
Yeah.
But the most amazing thing was when that book was done, before he mashed print, he called me. And I love him for it. He said, "George, I've read your whole book. It's ready to go." He said, "But there's one thing." He said, "There's nothing sad in it." Okay. He said, "People like to read sad stuff because you don't really have to tell dirt on anybody." He said, "But there's nothing sad in it." He said, "Are you sure that you don't want nothing?" I said, "No, I don't want nothing sad."
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want nothing sad in that book. I joked with him. I said, "Yours when I'm at that nursing home and I reread it, I don't want to be sad."
There you go.
But I didn't want nothing, because nobody's messed up as much as me. Nobody's made as many mistakes as me, and especially in the wrestling business. But I didn't want that to be in that book. And the greatest compliment for that book, Ole Anderson, I don't know if you remember the Anderson brothers back in the day. Gene passed away, but Ole's still with us. And Ole's just, I love him, but he's probably the meanest wrestler I've ever
some of the
met.
stories.
I mean, he would hurt you and laugh. But he is a atheist. He doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in nothing. And I just wanted to give him one of my books. Yeah. And it was the most amazing thing. Everybody said he won't read it. He'll throw it out the window. He'll throw it out the. But I gave it to Ole, and he read it. And he called me the next day. He said, "I said, Ole, what'd you think of my book?" He said, "Well," he said, "there's like 1 page of wrestling and 400 pages of Jesus." And I said, "That's like the greatest compliment I could ever get from him." But anyway, it's doing real good.
That's good.
We just finished up my second one, which I have not even held it in my hands yet. We've just ordered it. Okay. It's just my whole career.
Oh, nice.
A good friend of mine, Jason Freeman, he is very brave, and he said we ought to, because I've always wrote down my matches, the results. I'm so glad I did over the years. And he said, "Let's put it in a book." And I said, "You got to be crazy." I said, "Your wife's going to kill you and me and everybody." But believe it or not, he did. And there's over 8,000, close to 8,000 matches in this book.
Oh, wow.
And we got the dates, the places, and he did a whole lot of research, stuff that I had forgotten. Yeah. And so he was able to put that in that book. So that'll be the next one coming out any day now. So we're pretty excited to have that.
Now, tell people where will we be able to get these books?
Just simple, georgesouth.com.
Georgesouth.com.
Yeah, my website. They can also at the wrestling shows, I take it with me everywhere I go. I'm on the road 3 or 4 days a week, and I always got the books with me, so they can definitely go to my website. The website gives me a chance to autograph it first. A lot of them want me to be able to autograph it and mail it to them, which I don't mind that at all. So they can go to georgesouth.com and say hey to me, and it all comes to me. The guy asked me last week, he said, "Well, don't you have people?" He said, "Like when I write you, don't your people get it?" And I started laughing. I said, "Bro, I ain't got no people." I said, "I'm the people,
There you go.
So it comes right to me. So I love to talk to him.
I was also going to ask as well, I heard you talking about students, so you have your own school.
I sure do, I've got 2 schools I'm working with. I've got one in Charlotte I've had for about 16 years.
Oh,
and
nice.
Awful proud of it. I tell people all the time when Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat bring their son, to you and say, "Train him," you better know what you're doing.
Exactly.
There's no more nervousness or butterflies than when they do that. So I've had the privilege of training them. Tessa Blanchard, Tully's daughter, who to me is probably the greatest woman wrestler in the world. I mean, not because I trained her. And a lot of wrestling fans think just because your dad was famous that you're automatically going to catch on, and you don't. I mean, to me it's harder. Yeah. Because everybody already thinks that you got to know. You sure do. And Tessa's doing great. I was able to train Cedric Alexander, who's in WWE right now, and people say, "Well, you know, what is it that you get out of it? And it's just those special moments, like Cedric this past week. He finally got his WWE, I call them baseball cards still, but you know, he's got his WWE Topps card.
Nice.
And so it's kind of neat. You know, he's a little kid from Charlotte, you know, and he sent me a stack of his cards. So to see a guy that had a dream and to see him on TV and see Tessa doing so good. So, and we got a little school in Winston-Salem, and we just do it the old-fashioned way. A lot of hard work and setting the ring up and sweeping and, you know, and we just, exactly. And that tells me more than anything in this ring. You know, if you just want to work hard, I mean, there's a chance you can, you know, you may do something special in wrestling. And I just hang on to it. My kids say, Dad, when are you going to get a real job? I say, I wouldn't know how to get a real job.
There you go.
Yeah,
I don't blame you.
No, I just hang in this, buddy. So,
there you go.
And there's still fans. I love going to the towns, you know, and meeting different people every night. And it's just neat because you meet like a kid that saw me back in the day, but now he's grown and he introduces me to his kids. And it's so neat to see how it all goes, you know. There you go. And there's still a lot of wrestling fans.
Oh, you got that right.
Especially in this area.
I think it's just, there's so many wrestling fans now, it's just, it's not necessarily like a territory day, but there's so many more options. Yeah. Because everybody's knowing there's not WWE now.
That's exactly
right. You know, because New Japan's come on. Ring of Honor's really stepped up their game. Yeah. Impact, they're changing their face. I mean, it's just a whole new game now.
You know, that's what I tell my students. Everybody thinks you're supposed to go to WWE. Yeah. It's like, now I know that's like the major leagues, but if you don't, because they've got already a backlog of guys that they are just trying to find a place for. And I tell my students every day, yeah, we all want to go there, but if you don't, like you said, there's a great living. Oh, yeah. Tessa's a perfect example. Exactly. She's going to Japan. She's with Impact now. So there is a whole world. Now, WWE wants you to think that they're the only show in town, and they are the big boys. Yeah. But you can make a great, great living. Oh, yeah. With that, if it never happens. Yeah. And because they've got that NXT, which is doing great, training some young guys, but you know, you may go down there and nothing may not happen. But your dream don't have to stop because you can still work hard and go other places.
And still, you may learn something there that may give you the opportunity to do it.
Exactly right. And I'll tell you, there's always, I tell my students this all the time, if you know a little bit of what you're doing and just keep your mouth shut, they'll find you. Yeah. Everybody's always asking me, well, how do I get seen? What do I do? What do I do? You don't have to do nothing. If you're doing it right a little bit to begin with, they'll find you. Yeah. You know, years ago I heard when I first, most impressive thing about Vince McMahon. Yeah. You know, everybody said bad things about him and all this, but the very first time I ever went to WWF TV, Nelson Royal, who was an old timer, he sent me and like 5 guys up there. And I'll never forget, the plane was late, so we got to the building late and was all nervous because it was the first WWF. I mean, I went from like, you know, NWA and WCW, who were just still hauling a ring on an old flatbed trailer, till you get to WWE. And there's like 18 transfer trucks with logos. Oh, and all the ring crew have jumpsuits with logos. Oh, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't think I'm like in Kansas anymore. Exactly. and it just was very lucky, but as soon as we walked in the back door of this arena, Vince McMahon was the first person I about died. But what was so impressive is he knew who the heck I was. Yeah. I mean, he knew who I was. He named us by name. Every guy, he knew us. Yeah. And so that was so impressive that he didn't say, hey guys, go this way or that way. He knew our whole names. So it just proves to me that the reason he's still around is I always heard that he knew everything. If you were wrestling in the deepest, darkest jungle somewhere, he knew about it. And I believe that. I believe that if he knows about you. You don't have to really have what was so funny about this, everybody wants to get a dark match, what we call a dark match. That's where you just go and you wrestle in front of some guys. But what's so comical about that, it ain't even a dark match. When we used to go do TV, and you'd understand this with video, and we would take 2 hours, 2 shows. Yeah. And in between tapes, they had to switch tapes back then. Okay, yeah. So we would do like a Monday Night Raw, and then whatever, SmackDown, whatever. But it took like an hour to switch tapes. Yeah. So instead of the ring being empty, they would just bring out 2 guys. It didn't mean you was getting a job. It didn't mean they liked you. They just needed something going on while they switched cameras. There you go. So that's where the dark match came from. Okay. And I did many of them, and I used to come back home to Charlotte, and guys said, man, good luck on that dark match. I said, what are you talking about? All you did, and that's all they are now, you just fill in space. Now, and I tell you, one match don't determine if they like you or not. Everybody thinks, man, I got to get this match right. And I'm thinking, listen, they have did research, They know everything in the world about you before you ever, it's amazing, before you ever get there. So there's a reason why WWE is still around.
Yeah, it's still top
and
dog.
And then this is the last thing I add is, I get tickled because I know you've heard it, and I know a lot of the fans have heard it, that, Vince McMahon killed wrestling. I mean, when all the promoters, he put them all out of business, and I've heard it a million times, and I laugh at that because it shows you the greediness of promoters. All Vince McMahon done was offer them money.
Yeah.
He didn't hold a gun to their head. He didn't threaten them. He just said, "I'll buy you." And every promoter said yes. Yeah, seriously, nobody, if they'd all said no, he would have turned around and went back. Yeah. And we would still have Jim Crockett, we would still have Memphis, but I swear, nobody wants to talk about that. Yeah. Every promoter said, okay. Yeah, okay. And every one of them took the money.
There you go.
That's what I think was the downfall. Yeah. And they didn't have to. No, they said, no, we don't want you. He'd have went back and kept doing and then we'd have all had a place to go. Yeah. But nobody did. That nature of that dollar. He said, they all said, yeah, how much?
There you go.
And he changed it for us.
Man, that was a good story.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, are you looking for an affordable place to buy comics? If you are currently traveling out of town or spending too much money on the things you enjoy, like comics, action figures, Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, then let us help you. At Hero Clash Collectibles, you can get the things you enjoy and save money. Fly by Hero Clash Collectibles today at 217 Knight Street in downtown North Wilkesboro, around the corner from Liberty Theater. What a deal!
George, I got to ask you one final question.
Okay.
I heard you was a comic book fan.
Yes.
Who's your favorite?
Buddy, I tell you, I have been Batman since Batman was cool.
There you go.
And I tell you a funny story. Years ago, Nate Buck and a guy approached me and he said, how would you like to speak at a comic book convention? I said, man, I love that. I mean, what the heck?
There you go.
And at that time, I just accepted the Lord as my Savior, and I'm so excited about talking about the Lord. And so anyway, I go to downtown Charlotte, merchandise, and so they put me in a room, and I'm standing here, and I'm like all proper dressed, and I just can't wait to speak. And then the doors open, and then it's like 9 in the morning, and here comes all these like grown men dressed up like superheroes. Yeah. And I think, wait a minute, I think I'm in the wrong room. And then here comes Star Wars figures, and they're all grown men, and dressed up like a superhero. So I had about 30 minutes, so I just shared my life, and I was a little bit about wrestling and all that, and they were looking at me like, shut up. So we got done, and then I said, Lord, get me out of here. Yeah. And one guy, Nate Butler, come up to me, who was there. He said, we ought to do a comic book on you. And I'd been a big comic book fan. I said, oh my goodness. So believe it or not, Stephen Butler, who draws, at that time he was drawing for the Avengers and stuff like that. He actually did a comic book and gave me, jacked me up and long hair. And they printed them all full color. And this was years ago, and they had them all made for me for free. And so I'm able to share with them everywhere I go. Just give a kid like a free comic or something, and tells a little bit about my life and stuff like that. So yeah, I am Batman all the way. I'm telling you, I just went. The viewers don't want to know this, but this is how good God is. Right before Toys R Us shut down, they had the tallest Batman figure that I've ever seen.
Oh man.
This thing was like $120.
Wow.
And I debated, and I wasn't gonna tell nobody, I debated if I was gonna, this thing was like bigger than I was. Yeah. It's like, as a comic book guy, I gotta have that thing. Yeah. But I ain't paying no $100.
There you go.
So I didn't get it. And Toys R Us shut down. The biggest, dumbest thing I've done in my life. I should have gave a kidney and got this figure. So, it's gone forever. Okay. The other day, got all this junk mail. I'm looking through Big Lots, papers, just killing time. And there's this Batman figure. And it's marked down. All right. Like half price.
What a deal.
Bro, I left right then. But I've hid it from my kids, because if they see it, they're going to think Dad has lost it. But this thing is the beautifulest thing I've ever seen.
What a deal.
Now, I ain't got no food in the cabinet, the light bill's late. But I'm telling you, they're just 7-foot Batman.
You got Batman
Oh,
covered.
it's right in the living room. And it's like the great, they didn't have that stuff when we were, you know, when we tried to make our figures.
Yeah, you got that right.
Oh,
I mean,
Lord.
growing up, because you know, Toys R Us was 2 hours down the,
That's right.
And Walmart, they'd only get a little thing, and the stuff me and my brother wanted, we'd have to make, we'd take
You sure
construction
would.
paper and glue and stuff, everything.
Yeah, that's what I did with all my old, like, action superhero figures, is I messed them all up and turned them into wrestling figures. Because they wouldn't have, you didn't have a ring, you didn't have nothing like that then. But, buddy, I got that. Scared me to death at night when I go home, but I got that 7-foot Batman. But yeah, I'm waiting, I'm holding on for Michael. Michael Keaton was always my favorite Batman.
Okay.
And I just marked out, because that was like the first Batman movie.
Yeah.
And I relate it all back to wrestling, is when the first Batman came out, you couldn't get the shirts. Now you can find the shirts, you know, the Batman logo. You can find it anywhere now, but Barry Windham had one. Famous wrestler, Barry Windham. And he wouldn't tell nobody where he got it. And they were literally wrestlers in that dressing room offering him $50 and $100.
That's good money,
And I look back now, how stupid were we? You know, I had like $10. I'll buy it from him. But at that time, it was just so neat, because it was like the hottest thing in the world when that movie first came out. But anyway, so I'm a big Batman all the way, and Venom, I like Venom. I just love that they're keeping making. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just enjoy it while they're doing it, you know. So.
Because I remember during the 90s, that's the thing I always wanted, and they've never come out. But now, you know,
There's one every. I love Deadpool too, but I mean the first one. This one's kind of just fight. You know, you can have a storyline, but just punch somebody. You know, and so. But
hear that, Hollywood. George got you.
No, I'm telling you, everything's wrestling to me. My kid said I can't even watch a movie with you because you're counting how many people are in the theater. You know, like I'm at a wrestling show. And just you can't do that. But no, I love Deadpool. I just the second one was wild. And then I tried watching The Matrix, which really ain't superhero-ish, but you got to have a college education.
There you go.
You know, to understand all of that.
It took me 2 times.
I know. That's exactly right. So, but I love it. I hope they keep making all the hero movies like that. And what's neat is I love it because, like with Venom, my grandbabies, I was always got, you know, they play with their daddy's Venom figures, but for me to go see it with my grandbabies, and they get to see this live action Venom, I think it's cool.
That's awesome.
So as long as they keep doing it, buddy.
What a deal.
And we're going to keep doing it too.
There you go. George, I want to thank you so much.
My friend, thank you,
I
buddy.
hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Folks at home, I know you enjoyed it. Just go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. You'll get more videos. Send out a big thank you comments to George. George, I want to thank you one more time.
Thank you so much, my friend. Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you.
Guys, everyone, the wild ones at home, stay wild.